Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sonictalk episode 700 and what is it? It is 705, isn't it? I'm looking. Yes, there we go. Recording today, live Wednesday, the 2nd of March. 3:03 day tomorrow, folks. So we're going to no doubt be inundated with squelchy 303 acid goodness and faux bass lines from the 1980s, or maybe we won't. Who knows? Anyway, this is the Music Technology Podcast. Hence my mention of the TB303 classic Roland. Well, I guess Compu baseline, I think it was, wasn't it? If I remember correctly. Anyway, nice to see you all. We're all here. Say hello to the folks in the YouTube chat, the IRC. We're streaming on Facebook Live. We're streaming on Twitch. We're streaming in all those good places. In fact, for those of you who are Patreon subscribers, you will have seen I did a little bit of noodling at the beginning with the two new 5 voices, the Cobalt5S and the Take 5. Not so new, but new to me because the review units have only just started been going out. But if you want to join us on Patreon, you just need to head over to patreon.com/Sonicstate, where I've been posting some really good, decent sample patches of some of the synths that I've been reviewing, actually. And there's some couple of nice things, and that's free if you're an upper tier. If you join us and you get it in before the end of the show, because our credits are automatically generated, your name may well appear at the end as a special thank you. So if you feel so inclined, do so. Do join us. It's much appreciated. What else? Have we got any other housekeeping? Yeah, I want to say thank you to everybody for joining us in the chats. That's right. It was Tick. I've said that. Oh, yeah. Subscribe. We've got more stuff coming up. One of the things that we've actually done, we've just gone into the old drawers to find. We've got a big stash of old hard drives going back to 2002, and I brought out the old USB to serial ATA, and I actually managed to pull off a bunch of videos from 2002 to 2008, which was, we only started posting to YouTube about 2011, so there's a whole bunch of this other content that none of you will have seen before unless you've been a follower from the beginning, which might or might not be interesting, including like a whole slew of show videos. So what was released at, or what did we film at Music Messa 2003? And there could be kind of an interesting exercise, but there's also other features as well. So we'll be posting that. That will be going up on our Patreon first, I think, and then we've got a new YouTube channel, sub-channel, where we'll put all of this, because I'm pretty sure most of our subscribers don't want to get notification of 40 videos from 2005 in sort of SD low-quality format, because that was the technology we're using. But that's all coming up soon. Anyway, let's say hello to some of our guests. We'll start with Mr. Rich Hilton, who's over there in sunny Connecticut. I guess it gets sunny, or at least it's warm in his house, perhaps, because he's got a T-shirt on. Is that an Esquivel? Does that say Esquivel? I can't see what your T-shirt says. Is your
Bullseye Bullseye
I can only see. Okay. I thought it might be Pablo Esquivel.
Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Esquivel, as in the Spanish composer, not the drug lord.
I should say that this was a gift from our dear production manager, Nick Gosling, who is a great guy and a wonderful man to be touring with.
Excellent. You say Escobar, I say Escobar. That's got to be. There might be a title in there somewhere.
Let's call the whole deal off.
Oh, that is Escobar. Worthy. Esquivel, isn't it? Esquivel, in fact, it is. Esquivel. Yeah. If you haven't checked him out, Pablo Esquivel, I think it's Pablo Esquivel, I might be wrong there, but really good. He did some really mad, sort of insane, weird, twisted, kind of psychedelic lounge music from the late 50s and early 60s, which is sort of really odd, all that kind of really strange nonsense singing and just brilliant stuff, absolutely brilliant. You will recognise it when you hear some of his classic hits. Well worth checking out. I didn't have a link ready because that just came up. Anyway, Rich, lovely to have you. You've been out, you've been gigging again, doing all sorts of stuff, so must be nice to be out there in the world.
It was. And the times here right now are relaxing. The local infection rate is below 3%, which is as low as it's been in quite some time. And mask mandates are falling away in all these different parts of the country. And I think we're testing the waters to see if the combination of acquired immunity, vaccinations, and dumb luck gets us through the next year without having to quit life again.
Woo, let's hope so. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, there's also... It'd be nice, wouldn't it? It'd be nice to have a bit of drama-free life, but sadly,
Some
it's
life
not
back.
always the case.
Yes.
Some life back. But lovely to have you, Rich. And also we have Mr. Dom Hawkin, a.k.a. Mr. Wiggly, who is
Hello.
who is there in the studio. How are you doing, Dom?
I'm good, thank you very much. As good as can be under the present circumstances. So yeah, can't complain at all. Just been.
I was just going to. You've got a 40th anniversary. Well, you very cleverly. What you've really cleverly done is gone by tens, increments of 10, so you can have these massive celebratory podcast events where I'm sort of have to wait for hundreds. You're doing them with tens, which I think is genius. So your 40th is on Wednesday, and you've got a bunch of people. I'm going to post the link to that in the show notes.
Yeah, it's on Sunday, and we've got the usual birthday suspects coming in with Ty and Kent Spong, but Gaz has promised to drop by, so that should be interesting. He's never bettered. Ty has never bettered his impression of Bungle from Rainbow, even in the sort of second or 30th birthday. I think that's still the moment, but it should be fun. So it'll be very little about music, I think, and just more about mayhem and crazy quizzes. So yeah, please, 7 p.m. on Sunday.
Yes.
Mr. Wiggly YouTube channel. Click it and it'll give you a reminder. It should be really good. Should be really, really good. So we'll get.
I'm trying to post it in the chat now. There it goes. And then we've got it here. Look, there we go. I did have it. I just, for some reason, I only got it in the browser. I'm going to dismiss.
Birthday as in episodes, really. It's much better.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm genius. I think it's by far it's a much smarter way of doing it than we did. So yeah. I'm glad to hear that. So, yeah, well, there is news. I mean, we've got a few things and there's some interesting stuff going on. I mean, I thought actually it was going to be a slow news week, and it is. I mean, obviously we've got, there is a lot of news, but in terms of music technology news, it's often traditionally a quiet time. But we'll start, actually, we've got, yeah, here we go. Let's start with this guy. No, that's not it. It's this one. Ta-da! This is Tim Shoebridge, and another one. It's a preview of some software he's done called PPG, which is Polyphonic Pressure Generator. And I got quite excited about this because I thought, MIDI in, and obviously something going on behind the scenes that's just basically channelizing each note and spitting out polyphonic aftertouch to a device. In this instance, I think he's sending it to the Nymphis, which responds to polyphonic aftertouch or MPE. It's quite a long video. Check it out. I posted the link in the show notes, so it'll be there. Tim he's starting to do some really, because he did the Nymphis editor, which he did in conjunction with Cherry Audio. So he's starting to do some really interesting stuff. And I was getting quite excited by this because I thought, oh, what a brilliant idea. I think the way he's done it is different to what I'd imagined, where essentially any keyboard which has aftertouch, or not, I think even not aftertouch, will transmit polyphonic aftertouch based on the triggers. And you see there, I think, where was it? Is it the... no, that's not it at all. It's the... basically, it's the... it takes a trigger input, then it sends an enveloped polyphonic expression event, I suppose. I thought what it was going to do was take a note, go, okay, I'll assign that to a channel, and then I'll track the aftertouch value, and it will just map it. But it wasn't. I don't know if that's even viable. I think maybe I was expecting something not in my head, but it's still a really interesting idea because he's made that envelope loopable. It can be triggered by a specific note. It can be triggered by velocity. It could be triggered by a controller event. So it's actually quite useful and quite interesting. It's just not quite what I expected. Rich, I mean, you're the resident MPE player who's got way more expression than you know what's good for you. This looks kind of interesting because most keybeds are not poly aftertouch. I mean, it's quite a rare thing, and it seems like this would be a really good idea.
It is a really good idea, and I enjoyed his explaining how it came about and his passion for the subject. And this might be an expressive thing, and I imagine actually the key switch part is probably the one that interested me the most, because for me to try to learn how to control my velocity to the extent where I can initiate this thing is a little bit kind of confusing and limiting to the technique. So I would prefer the key switch part, much like people do with Spitfire articulations or contact articulations. That said, it's really, I found the limitations a little bit disheartening, and I'd like to see my trepidation dispelled by some brilliant player who shows me how expressive it really can be, because you're essentially triggering on and off a predetermined behavior. It's not actually reacting to your finger. It's not just taking the mono pressure and converting it to poly in that moment. It's triggering an event that accesses the polyphonic channel and creates whatever happens in the polyphonic pressure world for that particular note. And I think it's a one-note event thing too. And I'm
not
correct
sure
me on that, but that's what it looked like.
I think the way it's implemented, maybe it will be the last played note. I think. I know, Dom, you probably got a bit more of a handle on this, being the more logically brained and programmery kind of guy that you are. Did you? Did you understand?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's neat. It's a nice idea, and yeah, don't go rushing out thinking that you're suddenly going to turn your even aftertouch keyboard into a poly aftertouch. It's not that. But as I understand it, if you take the trigger, let's just say you can set the bottom key of the keyboard or the button in the middle of the keyboard to trigger a polyphonic aftertouch. Whilst that is held down, any keys you play will trigger polyphonic aftertouch, and when you let go, it won't. So, my idea would be to put it on a foot pedal, I think. And
you can. He does it.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of people play lower notes and poly aftertouch on the lead line on the top, which is the easiest because you really only got to concentrate on one hand to get that effect in it. That makes it quite easy because you can put your chord down, hit the pedal, play your top notes, and go in and out on that pedal. And it will give you, as he shows on his video, a really kind of quite sweet, nice thing that if you had a normal aftertouch keyboard, the wobble or whatever the effect that you're using would affect all of the chords, which is quite annoying. So it does its job admirably, really, opening up that kind of poly aftertouch, the poly aftertouch effect. As long as you're doing it with
it's like duophonic aftertouch, effectively, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Which is what they introduced. They introduced that on the Polybrute firmware update. That's a thing where you can just kind of go, well, the notes I'm playing won't have any aftertouch applied to them.
Yeah.
Or the notes I'm holding won't have any, but the notes I'm playing will when I press. I thought maybe what it could do, and this is, but I don't know how it would work with round robin. If you have a 6-voice synth, it will just basically take each note that you plug in. Say you've got a little MIDI processor, note in, note 1 in, channel 1, note 2 in, channel 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then any pressure that you're playing on a note that is assigned to one of those 6 will only send its pressure to that note. Is
gotcha.
that
the aftertouch is literally an on-off. So if you can, the aftertouch on old keyboards literally works by having a long, basically pressure-sensitive strip, so that any of the notes that you press will turn it on and off. So if you were trying to single out a note, you could say the last note played would do it, I suppose. But that's about as far as you could go. You couldn't say the note that's currently on channel number 2, for example, is now assigned the aftertouch. It's an on-off switch for aftertouch.
Well, you could if you were processing after the effect, because if you're playing C2 and C3, say for instance, and C2 is assigned to channel 1 and goes into this little logic switch, and the second note is C2. So if you're holding them both down and then you press aftertouch, and it's got it won't know that the aftertouch is coming from C2. Yeah, okay, I understand.
Yeah, but it's not a massive step away from a little Kiwitronic style retrofit, because the synth knows that it's C2 and it knows that it's receiving aftertouch. So I can't help thinking, I really, really want to put little rubber feet under my keyboards that, that do it kind of, or a little laser light that triggers if I press a bit harder. It is frustrating. And I think that's what everyone's looking for. But no, this is a worthy middle step, particularly if you don't have aftertouch at all on anything, but you've got one of those modules that support it, will make it, really a much nicer experience for both the player and the listener, I suppose.
Yeah, I think it's out next week, he seemed to say. I don't know how much it's going to be. I can't imagine it's going to be tremendously expensive, but I can't put word, it's entirely up to Tim. But nice to see a bit of innovation going on there. And I'm sure there might be a way for it to happen. I just think I'm kind of, mind percolating, just in inside a Raspberry Pi or something where it just go, yeah, don't worry, I've got this. Even if it's only duophonic
interesting as well. I mean, I don't think he had it programmed in there, but you could say the upper 2 octaves would switch it. Sorry, Rich, carry on.
No worries. There is software by Rolly called Dashboard, with which I have a love-hate relationship, as I've described previously. However, one of the wonderful things about it is it does aggregate. In other words, you can apply this thing as an output to a single synthesizer, which I assume if it were to collect polyphonic aftertouch data would relate to this thing in some way. So in other words, they're already doing probably some kind of detection like that in order to make it match the aftertouch style of whatever you're playing after the dashboard, which is, I was talking about how I wish those functions were mostly in the actual instrument itself in the next rev a couple of weeks ago. But it is a pretty handy thing in that regard. So I believe they're aggregating a ton of MIDI data and manipulating in various ways. So the aggregating the MIDI data part is what I'm addressing here. Yes, that's already sort of been done. So it's then what do you do with it?
Great post by Lady Aptitude in the chat room there. Sorry, no, this is some merch. No bloody aftertouch. And with my face there, that's a synth meme I've seen one. Nice one. Thank you very much. Anyway, I thought it was it's probably not the biggest news, but at the time I was looking for news, it was. Subsequently, there are other things that are now coming into play, which we'll take a look at next. So let me just, what's the next topic? Let's have a look. I think we'll go to this one because I think this is going to be. This is probably. Let's see. Did I actually? I haven't got a video for this, have I? But I have got. I've got this guy. So yeah, there we go. We've got a slew of new Behringers, many of which are, as Synthtopia delightfully put them, knockoffs, which I think is fair enough way of putting it. I mean, he's entitled to his opinion. This is the Proton, which, as we know, the Neutron is. I think the Neutron is a fantastic instrument, and this is the Proton, which is a kind of the next generation, I suppose. And it looks like it's still based on the 3340 VCOs, which sound really good in the Neutron. I mean, if you've never tried one, either of you, I thoroughly recommend it. You're going to go, oh my. And a twin VCFs, which are the Moffat ones, we think really good. Four VCOs. 4 envelopes, 2 ADSRs and 2 ASRs, and 2 LFOs, which go up into audio rates if they're the same flavour. Lost the drive and lost the effect, but we got a lot more synthesis functioning. It's an interesting thing. I mean, Behringer have been very quiet for a while, and now I guess they're kind of ramping up, getting ready to do their production on this big stuff, this is the stuff I'm interested in, not the kind of, as they've said, knockoff stuff. I'm interested in the new stuff, and this does look cool. Rich, have you tried the Neutron? Have you actually put your hands on one and listened to one in a room?
Have not, but I hear nothing but great things, and it looks like a wonderful product, and I'm pretty sure I saw whatever review you posted of it.
Yeah.
So,
I was impressed, I have to say. And this one looks like it could be more of the same. $299 US. I mean, that's a crazy low price. And
like you, I like when they do their own thing. To put it, simply.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, we've got Saturn Sol, which is like a Jupiter, Toro, which is like a Taurus, and Pro VS as well, which have been touted, but none of these are available. They're suffering the same chip shortages as everybody else. So I guess once it turns up, then they'll be okay. But Dom, have you tried a Neutron?
Yeah, I've got a Neutron. I love it, and I loved it even more that you did that interview with Federico Vindver, who's this Grammy award-winning. He's worked with Kanye and Meghan Trainor. There's a Kanye track with some. It's a brilliant interview. I've mentioned it before. Check it out. It was last April, May, and on Sonicstate. But
it was.
He talks about working with Kanye and the track Sunday, Closed on Sunday, and Nick's on about this bass saying, "Oh yeah, you must have got a Mini Moog in, sounded brilliant." He said, no, I didn't have much room in the suitcase. I took out my Neutron. And it's just this, there's very little going on in the track, as is it true with most Kanye tracks. And it's just this brilliant booming bass line coming out of a Neutron. And I looked at it in a slightly different light after that. I mean, it's always been like there, but slightly as an afterthought, as a really like kind of, oh yeah, great sounds coming out of this, but, perhaps not for reality. And then you start looking at it more closely. And the thing's brilliant. So 300 quid. It's perfect sweet spot. It's got a wave folder on it, I think, which is going to be interesting. No drive, but I think the wave folder and I think an extra couple of looping ASR envelopes. I think there's definitely a lot more in it. And you can live without the delay. Get a pedal. The delay was pretty dull on the Neutron anyway. It's nice to have, but definitely you can do without. And I don't know if that LFO still goes up to audio rates, but that was what was getting me into audio rate PWM I mentioned a few weeks ago as my new kind
It's interesting, is it? It's interesting. I've got the shot here. The big knob at the bottom is actually the LFOs, and the filter. Everything else is sort of relative. The filters, the LFOs seem to be stars of the show. You know, the LFOs and VCOs are the stars, and then the filters and the envelopes, everything else are kind of starred off of it. So yeah, it's an interesting. Sorry, Andy, I keep switching. Andy's switching today, and I keep jumping in. I'm kind of like I can't break the habit. It's very it's got a. I think it's going to be good. I'm looking forward to it. I one thing I really missed, the Neutron had the drive, but the tone that you had as well was like this extra kind of tilt EQ, which when as if there wasn't enough bottom end on those massive oscillators. When you then filter it down and you turn the tone down, it was ridiculous. I mean, with a little bit of drive, it's as big as a very big thing. You know, it really was.
Totally. Totally.
Yeah,
and Euro rackable as well. So it's your gateway drug as well. If you've not got into it, lots of patch points. You know, it's perfectly sized to fit in your Euro rack skiff and set you off on that merry journey to the to bankruptcy court. But great thing, really good. 300 quid.
Yeah, I do hope it turns up soon. And obviously the other stuff would be interesting, but it's kind of those are ludicrously cheap as well, aren't they? I don't know what they are, sort of $49.99 for them. I mean, which is fine, but you know, other people make stuff that's similar. This is something unique, and I'd like to see more of that stuff. But you know, hey,
totally.
Okay, let's have a look. What's the other thing? Well, I think we can't go much further without at least mentioning some support for our friends in Ukraine. It's been such a nightmare. If I do this, Peter Kern's put a really good page together. I mean, it's hard to know what to do. I mean, aside from the politics, it's just the sort of human cost and the tragedy of this is really disturbing and distressing. And there are a number of people. Not only have we got, I think we've. Soma certainly have roots in Ukraine. I think some of their employees are in Ukraine. I think we've also got Sign Vibes, who are the great coders. They're based in Ukraine. I'm also told that Endorphins are from or based there. So it's an absolutely dreadful situation. And if there's anything that we could do to help, it's probably to support artists who are putting stuff out there. And Peter Kern's done a really good job of putting together some resources to do that. And you know, whether we get, I don't really want to get into the rights and wrongs of, you know, international war, but it's a terrible situation that shouldn't be happening. And if we could in some way affect it by registering our displeasure, then I think that's a good thing. And also, by the same token, supporting people as well. I think that's important. I know, Rich, I imagine it's a difficult thing to talk about because it's just every day it seems to get worse and worse, and it's just like I want it to stop, as I think we all do. My
ancestors are from the area. I don't know specifically exactly where between Poland, Ukraine, but my ancestors are from the area. But in any case, I spent some time on the website, thought it was a wonderful thing, actually reposted it to my own wall, and spend time listening to the music on it, and there's some outstanding music on there. So I encourage.
Yeah, it's really experimental.
I mean, in addition to supporting Ukraine in general right now, to please have a listen to the artwork that's coming out of there, because it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. I posted a link to there's a Bandcamp for one of the labels where there's and it's a really interesting wide gamut. It has a very strong cultural identity running under it, even the kind of what I would term as kind of European pop charts sort of based stuff. There's lots of in all of the visuals that accompany it, and this is before presumably all of this happened, because I imagine it'd be pretty hard to make a pop video at the moment, still has an awful lot of kind of folk imagery and national dress and all this kind of thing. It's quite interesting. It's a really strong culturally identifiable place. I think I'm saying that right. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Dom, it's, we could do what we can. And today we added the flag to our logo and our Facebook and our YouTube. Just it feels like such a pathetic thing to do, but it might help.
I feel a little helpless, doesn't it?
Supported.
I mean, anything helps, I guess. I have nothing more to add, really. What a disastrous situation, which is not going away soon. I hope it does, but it's absolutely terrible. So any support we can offer, you can do what you can. That's it, isn't it? And it's just a terrible situation. It's just as we thought we were getting out of one fire, we've jumped into another one. So hopefully there's an end to this at some stage.
Mr. Grundy in the chat room said I should put a yellow tape across the Cobalt, which is actually is it Mr. Grundy? I can't miss that. It's gone. It's the chat is moving a million miles an hour. But yeah, anyway, we can't ignore this. But hopefully we'll end up with a situation where we've actually got some kind of resolution and things can get back to normal of some description. And hopefully we'll all be able to kind of just get back to normal life and so will they, and without too much more disruption and fear. Okay, I think maybe I'll just take a breather and we'll have a word from our friends over at iZotope.
iZotope Producers Club is a one-of-a-kind membership for producers ready to take their tracks to the next level. Once you join, you'll gain access to powerhouse iZotope plugins and a curated selection of tools from our partners, such as Melodyne from Celemony. Plus, as long as you're a member, you'll get every future update to the iZotope plugins in your membership for no extra cost. We'll also regularly serve you new curated content like exclusive inspiration-sparking sample packs and preset packs, and industry-leading training ranging from our own tutorials to vocal production lessons from the world-renowned Berklee Online, taught by Grammy-winning producer and engineer Prince Charles Alexander. With new content being added every month full of valuable production techniques, tips and tricks, and solutions to common production problems, becoming a member is an investment in your career that grows as you and your career do. For more information on iZotope Producers Club, head to iZotope.com.
And don't forget, if you want to save as well, if you go to iZotope.com/Sonictalk, I believe if you use the code Sonic10 at checkout, you save an extra 10%, which is all good. Head over and see what they got. This is only on software products, not on subscriptions or hardware, but we very much appreciate their support. Much appreciated. Okay, so let's get on to something else. This may be contentious. I know that this has caused a lot of issues in the past, but hey, I'm going to go for it anyway. What the hell? This is the rather sad demise of the Timberwolf. This is a chap called Nonstop Picnic. I guess it's a chap. And you see he's chasing the voices around. This is a Bach piece, Canzonata in D minor, which is going to run out. I had to screen capture it because I couldn't figure out how to get it in. And so yes, on the Timberwolf. And there's a few things here. Obviously, the Timberwolf launch was one of those kind of car crashes of a product launch. It just didn't work out. I think I think it's on. I forget which site it is. The one of the sites. It was launched in 2015, and they called it the Hindenburg of synthesizer demos, which is perhaps a little harsh. But I remember Dan Gill, who's a great guy. He just had a bad day at the office, and he got terribly. He got a really hard time about it. And he's a brilliant and very accomplished designer designer, technology guy, just didn't have a great day at the office that day. And I think maybe it was a bit misunderstood. It's very simple, 4 voices. They all round robin, so which is why in that demo he's kind of chasing the voices around, trying to articulate them at the same time. But this was a couple of things. It's like, well, it's considered very much to be a very poor instrument, okay? But I think it's all relative, because obviously we've got Bach going in, who is a genius, and you can kind of really appreciate the musicality of such a thing. So what does it really matter? I mean, ultimately you can make a lovely piece of music on sine tones, you know. They really doesn't matter. And I suppose that was just really, wanted to get a conversation about, you know, well, there's a few things. Good music on any instrument makes for a good experience, but also there are some instruments that are very much underrated or written off, but still capable of doing some great things. So, I know, Rich, I'm sure you could probably play Bach and have studied, and the musical chap that you are. Did you ever get to play on a Timberwolf? Because I remember doing it at NAMM, and it was a bit of a confusing experience. It wasn't the finest.
No.
Thing. I think at the time it was over. The expectations were high, and what was delivered was low, I suppose, is the mismatch there between.
I never interacted with the Timberwolf, so I have interacted as a student with J.S. Bach, however, and you can play that on anything, and I love it. Watching this man go through the motions of trying to give his creature life, as they say in the movies, was really distracting and hard. But if I closed my eyes, I really enjoyed it. And it reminds me, is this so? I'm not that familiar with the Timberwolf, but didn't Electron have a product called Analog 4 that was conceptually not dissimilar, whereby you could have 4 different tones on 4 different channels and have it behave like 4 monophonic instruments, if that's kind of how you wanted to roll?
That's true. There was a lot more going on. They were much more complete voices, and there was a really, really excellent sequencer, and you could play them together as well, which I think you could on the Timberwolf, but you still had to dial. It was like the Monopoly, except you had a separate filter for each voice as well, which makes it quite difficult to use, but good for maybe 4-part counterpoint.
We didn't complain when it was called the Oberheim 4 voice. It was
quite.
I wasn't. I don't know the Timberwolf, but I enjoyed the music and kind of pitied the poor guy twisting the knobs.
It did say it was. I do look a bit ridiculous in this, but I'm chasing the notes because it's dynamically allocated, so you never know which one's going to be the next note. So that was kind of quite fun. It's like whack-a-mole, I suppose, in many ways. But I suppose that brings up another question, doesn't it? The idea of, you know, what synths are there that seem to that weren't really considered to be all that, and either kind of came back and became hits, or were just. I mean, obviously we've got the 303, it being
303, clearly, yeah. I mean, I've got such a soft spot for the Timberwolf. I owned one briefly this morning.
Oh wow!
Because I bought one off of eBay for £160, and then he came back and said, "Oh no, sorry, that wasn't meant to be live. I got it. It was the wrong price, clearly." But so he pulled the auction. And to be honest, I think it's just being a fan of the underdog and knowing the 303. I've yet to own one, so this is kind of pie in the sky, but I do think it's a future classic. And I think it only takes one tune. I mean, the Bach tune is lovely. That's not it. That's not going to push the Timberwolf into the mainstream. But I can't help thinking there's going to be some little mod or something that comes along and everyone goes, wow, this is brilliant. The prices are rising. And it's so bad that partly because I keep telling everyone it's a future classic, I would like to think, but mainly I think because they are so cheap now, and they're not that bad. You know, they're not. If you want like a mono synth with 4 oscillators, and you look at it like that, I think potentially you're onto a winner. But they're basic. But there's just some decent bass coming out of that demo, just as it stands, and. You know, it wouldn't have been unfathomable to have spent 160 quid on it, and 250 for something like that is good, I think. And it'll take a little Raspberry Pi.
I looked on eBay today. And there was like ones 190, 188 UK pounds.
Yeah.
So I mean, they're holding their low price consistently,
which is why they're selling. I think, you know, I'd love to. Yeah, I'd love to think they were a future classic. A lot of that is because it's the underdog, but they're not as bad as people make out. There's plenty of worse things around, I'm sure. Can't quite think of them, but there's definitely a lot of worse things.
What was the last thing that you bought? Was there anything that you bought that you just thought this is going to be great and it really, really wasn't? Either you didn't click with it or it just didn't sound all that fantastic. This could be an uncomfortable conversation, actually. I mean, obviously, we're all treading with care.
Yeah, some Eurorack modules have let me down, but that doesn't really count because there's so many different ones of those. What do I think? Just looking around, not really, to be honest.
I remember the Akai AX and VX synthesizers, which they had a funny little voice thing on the back that you could plug into an original S900, but they were quite weedy. I remember them being a bit disappointing and a bit skinny and sort of like, that's not really.
I mean, the Matrix 1000 gets a lot of love and some really high prices. I had two, and just let them go for next to nothing, and they really didn't float my boat. They're sixth voice analog. I mean, that's way back, but they command super high prices now, and it didn't really do it for me, to be honest. It just sounded a bit.
It was all SysX editing with the Matrix 1000, wasn't it?
Oh, and they had a terrible SysX implementation, so they crashed all the time, and they were really slow. I think someone might have done an update, but yeah, half of the SysX was missing. They kind of left it out, and it was really, if you sent the data too fast, it would just break. So kind of you were left with these 1,000 presets. And none of them worked. I think there was maybe one. I wrote the number on it, just switch it to that. It's a bit like 27 on the MIDI verb, which was the big reverb everyone used to use back in the day when your best reverb was an Alesis. No, I don't think there's much. I don't like selling anything, really. I don't hang on to it, even if it's pretty bad. But there's nothing that's really... No, can't think of anything.
I think Yoad's got a couple of Matrix 1000. I think Yoad's got a couple of Matrix 1000s. The Ensoniq Fismo was another big one. It just, everybody was berating it, and I still, there are some people, I can't even remember, was it a transwave synth? I can't remember the spec of it, but I remember people were like, because it was quite colourful and gaudy, but I never played one, and I know people who really do rate it.
So Fismo referred to the phrase physical modeling.
Ah, okay.
That's what Fismo
I thought it was
meant.
Like Gizmo.
No, it's not Gizmo. It was
I never wash it.
colloquial way to say physical modeling was FIZMO, was Fismo. And I did play one once, and it was okay. And I often find that things that have a lot of romance today were things I didn't want back when they were released. And I just think that's the nature of romance and the flattening out of the distinctions over time. The fact that it's old becomes more important the older it gets, kind of like me. And its actual quality level hasn't improved any. Now, I hope that's not me.
That's not true. I won't hear it.
But I hope that's not me. But it's, so... certain things that didn't appeal to me then, very few of them carry that much more appeal to me now that I would want to spend some ungodly fortune on them. But like photography, the farther away you get from it, the more it flattens out. Time, that is. And people lose the distinctions between the different things that were important to us in that context at the time. So the thing got released, and like in any of your reviews, it had these features, but it lacked those features. And people would get, well, the other one can do, the EML 101 has 4 oscillators. It's better than a Mini Moog. You'd have those arguments.
Yeah.
So, I didn't have a Matrix 1000. I did play earlier matrices, and they were wonderful. And I'm a great lover of Oberheim products, but I don't have much else to say about this Timberwolf thing.
Speaking of Oberheim, actually, I did try, because I never got round to trying out the OBE, and partly because towards the end of the life of my previous laptop, I was running out of installation space, and so I just didn't put anything on it. And whereas I've got plenty of disk space left, I put that on this the other day. And honestly, when people say it sounds fantastic, you kind of expect that. Dave and Chris, lovely guys. People are always going to say nice, but honestly, it's one of those things. Some of the patches have got tons of effects on, and they sound amazing. And then you just go, all right, I'm going to turn those off and see what. And you just go, oh my god, it still sounds amazing. It really is a work of art, I have to say. And I'm not just saying that because he's a mate. If you want to hear a soft synth done that sounds really massive. I mean, even on my crappy audio interface that I was just using to monitor from, it was just like, oh my goodness, that's amazing. So yeah, that's the. But then in that piece where Tom was talking about in the Bright Sparks extra episode, where Tom was talking about the period, the sort of Marion period, and the I guess it would have been the Matrix 1000 round about there. That was perhaps not the they kind of ran out of resources, so there was some stuff that perhaps wasn't so great. I seem to remember.
Mm-hmm. That's Torn Tech apparently make an update. Someone was saying in the chat. So as long as you fix that, then you can get into editing. Then it probably is much better. I mean, it just was one of those things that didn't quite hit
probably
me.
Needs a CPU update.
Exactly. Yeah.
You can't play notes and control them at the same time. Then you're just asking for trouble.
Quite.
Anyway, I just thought that was a good piece. Let's have a look, see what else we've got. Let me see. Right, okay. Well, this was a big one that again I missed. This also just popped out. So let's just throw this out there because I think this would be. I know something that you're really interested in, Dom. This is the new Squarp HAPAX or HAPAX. I'm not quite sure how it's made. It's really interesting grid-based sequencer, but it's got two project engines, so you can run them both at the same time. It's 192 ppqn, which is a decent resolution. 2 times MIDI I/O, 2x4 MIDI I/O, and CV 2x4. 16 tracks, 8 patterns each project, and you run them all simultaneously. It doesn't have its own sound engine, but it looks like it also records and playbacks MPE and polyphonic expression. Out now, €865, €879. And this, I know the Squarp Pyramid was one that we've covered it at a couple of trade shows. I mean, I've never got around to using it, but it's supposed to be a really nicely tuned and brilliant sort of performance sequencer. And I'm guessing this has got 128 pads. I mean, it looks really nice. I mean, I don't know, Dom, whether this is this sort of because of your fixation with that, not fixation, but because you're really into the deluge, which has a similar kind of vibe to it, isn't it? It's got a lot of pads, and so you've got the ability to.
So I just love it because it looks like a deluge, and obviously
that came out wrong.
No, I don't know. No, I was always toying with a pyramid, and they've done the Circlon as well, I think, and I know a lot of particularly techno-oriented people are using the pyramid, and because it's like rock solid timing, it's really simple. You can hit the beat in there, and it's tempting. It's a really nice thing. And I went the deluge route because it's got other stuff built into it. This is a pure sequencer, but it looks like it's laid out really nicely, and they've made a really nice use, kind of deluge inspired by the deluge. In terms of like using the buttons almost as a screen. So like on the deluge, you can see the waveform displayed across the buttons in colors, whereas this one, you can use it to enter the MPE data. And I haven't seen it, any more than anyone else here, but it looks like that the interface will be as tactile as the others. And if you want a rock solid, pure sequencer that just sits in the rack and does its stuff, and you get on making noises, which is really what I think people are using the Squarp stuff for. It's the beats are fairly basic, if you like, and it's all about the sounds that are pushed out of them. Then this looks like a really cool thing. And I know people who
got those two screens, which do look kind of nice, don't they?
Yeah, I know people who've switched. A friend of mine called Fabo on Facebook switched from a pyramid to deluge. A lot of people are switching from deluge to the new Akai with the new software and back again, but they've got a real hardcore following for the original pyramid and stuff, and it's nice to see something new, which it looks really cool basically, and it looks like it's an easy thing to use, so fingers crossed.
I don't know what it is about me. I've got a kind of mental block about hardware sequencers. I don't know why. I think it's because I spent such a long time in software and on DAW and on Logic and Cubase, where I had all of that stuff and I got to know it so well. The idea of going to a pattern-based sort of thing, I think I had such a bad time with Steinberg Pro 24, which was pattern-based. When it went to linear, I was like, I'm free, I can do it. And so I don't know and I'd love to check it out, but I don't know what... I don't know how I feel about it. Rich, I mean, you've got a lot of experience with sequencing stuff. I mean, I know you were doing a lot with the not the Fairlight, the Synclavier. I don't know how. I mean, do you have an affinity with hardware sequencers as well, or is there something that you kind of feel comfortable using?
Well, this thing looks fantastic to me, and as I may have mentioned once or twice in the past. What interests me is live interactions musically with these kinds of gear, whatever those kinds of gear are, whether they be CV driven and modular or whether they be software driven and USB. I don't care. Point is, I want to see an effective live means of interacting with those devices such that it's not just muting and unmuting your homework from last week and that becomes your concert.
Right.
So the performance elements and the ability of this thing to control such a wide variety of things and have so many great little gazintas and gazoutas on the back. I am intrigued by this instrument. It is to me an instrument. It's a live performance instrument, and it would have to exist in a system of things that make sounds and mix them. But and it is also, I must say, not a low-priced device, which is understandable given all the things it does. But it's not for the faint of wallet, this thing. If I understand correctly, it's about $1,000.
875 euros, so probably a similar amount. I mean, I don't know. I mean, that might, but maybe about $1,000. Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
So it's a significant investment to find out if this is going to be your version of Nirvana in a live setting. But it's something that really intrigues me as it relates to my goal to see people interacting musically in a creative way on the gig, and this whole thing about being able to crossfade between or transfer between two loaded projects, and while you're playing one you could be loading another one and you could continue to make this sort of rave-like sequence of events and songs, and you can have songs with more than one section in them and things like that. This is what we need in this world.
Yeah, well, I think we'll definitely make a beeline if they're going to be at Super Booth. We'll definitely make a beeline for it, and if we can find out maybe a way of getting one down here, check one out, or maybe find someone who's more in that groove to review it, we'll definitely do that. That sounds like it looks like something we really want to check out. That's for sure. Okay, well, I left it a bit late, but we've still got about 10 minutes. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go with the, obviously, the other news of the week was the Modal Electronics Cobalt5S, which I've also published my review. I was a good boy, and I hit the deadline, and it seems I wasn't alone. There were quite a lot of people who got hold of them, but I guess that's the way it goes sometimes. I just was interested in it. So that's not it. It's that one, isn't it? There we go. So this is the 5S, which is basically the Cobalt 8 engine. Aftertouch keyboard, sort of not mini keys, medium keys,
rather
XY pad,
muted.
all of that stuff. But the same kind of, basically a DSP extended virtual audio. Again, 5 voices, built to a price. I think it's going to be about $379 UK, $449 US, which may be a bit higher than some people would like, but it sits quite squarely in the affordable bracket, and a couple of things that I've just taken away from it, it's still got some of those really nice sounds because you can spread and do the same oscillator tricks that you could do with the original, which is 2 oscillators, blend between them and then spread them out to sort of 4 divisions down each, so you could get 8 per voice if that's what you need. And then it's small and compact, and I thought if they put some studs on the end, it could be keytarable. And not only that, all of the rotary encoders send out MIDI, so it's quite a useful controller as well. So I liked the original 8. It was a bit reduced in terms of it doesn't have the high DSP hungry effects, so it's missing the reverbs and whatnot. So it's just a chorus and a delay, I believe. But yeah, it looked kind of cool, and it's nice to see because we've got a bit of a history with those guys. They started out in Bristol down the road. You know, we were the first to see their first things. It's always nice to see more stuff. I hope it does well for them. Any thoughts on this, Dom? It's a cute thing actually, and it feels pretty well built as well. It's not like cheapy.
I was surprised at the price. It was lower than I expected when I got to that bit, and I think it hits a nice sweet spot because there doesn't seem to be a massive difference between that and the 8. I think you covered it, didn't you? I mean, if the two effect slots are fixed, and there's only 2 of them, and I think there's 2 LFOs and not 3, from what I found. Obviously, it's 5 voices, not 8, but it's got all of the 40-odd algorithms, all the same filters, and it works off a USB power, I think, and battery, is it? I think.
Yeah.
So.
It doesn't have a battery,
so
but then if it's powered on USB, you could always just plug
USB,
it in.
then you're fine. Gotcha, yeah. So something to take out, when I go out every morning with my deluge for my morning prayer session. I can always take it. I take it with me.
Just link them together, yeah. Why not?
I think as an extra thing that as a thing for your backpack for whatever, it's neat to have, but actually as a I would consider this over the 8 just as a unit in the studio. I think to get those sound sources in there, and we were chatting very briefly before the show about the 5 voices. I mean, it never stopped anyone with Prophet 5s, but you got octaves in the left hand and your 3 voices, your 3 chords, your triad in the right, and you're pretty much sorted, to be honest. So I think it hits a really nice spot, and I don't own any modal stuff, but that may well be the first thing that's tempted me to go, actually, do you know what, this is really sweet. So full marks to them. I did wonder whether this kind of cut down thing has an element to do with the chip shortage, whether producing stuff with potentially less chips. To be honest, though, it's a guess, because I'm guessing because it's got most of the stuff inside it already, the chips aren't that less anyway. But
I wonder whether it's that, whether it may be the thing that there's 5. It's one of those things, isn't it? It's like, well, the one that'll do 8 is this much, but then we've got these little ones which will do 3 each. And they're cheaper, but you don't want to do 6, so you make it do 5. I don't know. I mean, that's a complete guess. I mean, because it's not the same thing. I don't think that would be the issue with the Take 5, for instance. So
yeah, exactly. There's a lot of manufacturers looking at ways of producing this stuff, I think, with less chips. But
there's the Hydrosynth Explorer, which again is like a full-on Hydrosynth in without the poly keyboard. Does it have the poly keyboard? I can't remember if it does or not. But that's an 8 voice, and that's maybe 150. $200 more, but it's 8 voices and you get the full Hydrosynth engine. So it's a bit of a crowded market. Hey, Rich, have you tried any of the modal stuff?
Have not, but quite enjoyed your reviews of both this and Take 5 this last few days, and love the sound of this thing. I think this is a wonderful product. It just, particularly for live performance, and I think the 5 voice thing relates to a situation where some people feel boutique is too small and giant is too expensive and too large. So we're going to make a product niche that falls in between the too small boutique stuff that makes some people uncomfortable, which doesn't really make me uncomfortable, and the larger and more expensive stuff. So this gives you an access to the substance of much more fully developed and expensive product in a light, small form factor that apparently can be controlled also via software. Is that right? In addition to on the instrument itself, there's companion software that allows you to.
There is, but you don't need to use it. I mean,
understood. But you can access it if you want to see the whole universe.
Yeah,
you can
it's
see
a
the
tiny display. It really is very small.
What on the thing? Yeah, I remember you put your thumbnail up to it. I remember seeing that. And I want to say that I think I might have liked Take 5 more than you did. I thought it sounded spectacular. And there are things it doesn't do, but I thought it absolutely sounded amazing to me.
Great.
And really enjoyed it. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Well,
Good.
enjoy all of your reviews. You review like you're like my favorite reviewer because you really get to the heart of the thing.
Shucks.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I know. I did enjoy. I don't know what it was. I think maybe the sense of impending destruction was hanging over me while I was reviewing that. So perhaps I wasn't on my best form, but I don't think I missed anything
I don't
out.
know.
Perhaps I just didn't. I didn't sort of. Perhaps I just wasn't as effusive and enthusiastic as I usually am. Which, you know, it's just the way it goes. We all have off days at the office, but that wasn't a reflection of the synthesizer. It was perhaps more
Great
world
sound.
events, if that's the case. But yeah, people, because a lot of people were very evangelical in the comments about it, saying no, that's not that. This is the main, and it, you know, for a lot of people it is. And I did miss a couple of things. I agree, but on the whole, I think it sounded pretty good.
Both of them did. Both of them sounded great.
Yeah,
You know.
very different things, but
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think where I was going. I had a direction I was going to go in, and I've completely forgotten what it was now. But I don't suppose it matters all that much because we're almost at the time when we might say good night and God bless, because we're at the end of the show. There were a couple of things. Maybe I'll save those topics because you never know how we're going to go with stuff. But there's been a lot of synths announced this week. Obviously, Behringer have pulled a lot out of the can. It'd be nice to see them. So nice to see some hardware again, because up until now there's been a real focus on software, and I think that was something that I kind of maybe was thinking about at the beginning of all of the pandemic and lockdown, because lots of people sitting alone in there or locked up in their various offices and bedrooms or whatever, coming up and thinking about things and coming up with some great ways of coding them up. And so I suppose, you know, we're going to see and continue to see the fruits of that sort of labour. So I do hope so. But I suppose that's a closing thought. It doesn't really have any other meaning. But yeah, I know. Well, I suppose the one question, if everyone's got time for it, is: has this sort of period of life, this period we've been going through, made you more open to using software and software solutions than you were before? For the reasons that, you know, you can't get hold of the hardware so much, but also you maybe can't get out to see the stuff, or, you know, there's been more innovation. That's just a question I'd like to throw to both of you, if anyone wants to go first. Dom.
I can.
Mr. Wiggly, please.
Rich. Well, I was already quite an adopter of software before warrant of easy recall and easy life, I suppose, where I could get away with it. But I've always been a lover of hardware, particularly hardware outboard. So no, I don't think so. I don't think so is the answer to that. I've gone down a few rabbit holes, kind of just getting sort of stuck inside, you know, and kind of just got lost on YouTube or sort of forums and stuff, deciding that I really need something when actually I really didn't. That's a scary thing to be going down. But I've been more productive, I think. I don't go out that much. I used to be a very, very social animal, going out and doing all of the schmoozing that you have to do if you're a pro musician, or certainly a pro session musician. Nowadays, I kind of have quite a quiet life. So lockdown for us isn't too much different from real life, right, to be honest. So no, but I've learned a lot. I've spent a lot of time learning a bit more about coding or learning different things and indulging myself in stuff which is not paid work, if you like. You know, it's you're just learning experience stuff. So
that's
no, I would
That's
still, I would still want to stick my stuff throughout, if it's a soft synth, through some decent, you know, hardware outboard, or use a real synth in the if I can. So nothing's. I'm still at the same stage I was then. But yeah, definitely gone down a few rabbit holes and spent some time kind of bettering myself in terms of learning stuff. I guess that's the best way to look back at it.
Yeah, I suppose thinking about software, I've been more involved in actually using software to modify the workflow here, you know, so stuff behind the scenes. So from that point of view, I can understand how, if I was a plugin or a software developer, I might have been working on stuff that might have an end product that I would sell, whereas this is really just to sort of affect the way that I operate and how we can utilize cloud stuff and all those things. I know, Richard, what about you?
Specifically as relates to using software, I've been living in a software-centric world for at least 2 and some decades. So it's almost impossible for me to get deeper into software usage in music and audio creation as far as, the way I tend to do things. That said, what has increased during this time period has been my interest in the kind of hardware we were just discussing that allows an individual to have a live creative space that is flexible, malleable, and easy to operate, and falls out of the process and just allows you to create music in front of people that evolves and is cool and has cool elements. And though I've never been one, I've threatened to buy modular rigs for years and haven't bought anything, but that's not so much, like I say, executing my homework in front of people is not necessarily what I'm interested in, but finding a piece of equipment like what we were just discussing that I could interact with to create vibrant live creations is something that does interest me. And so maybe I'm more interested in hardware rather than software across the length of this time of pandemic. The possibilities because it's becoming increasingly clear that there is no money in recording. And if you're going to make any money at all, you're going to be playing gigs. Now, the question is, with whom are you playing those gigs? And in my case right now, I'm playing with Chic, and that's a wonderful thing. And it's its own thing. But as far as my personal life and finding a way to express myself with this thing, I have yet to find the right medium, and I'm pretty easy. I'd like to do chamber music on this thing. I'd like to do all kinds of things on this thing. I just haven't kind of found the right situation. So maybe working up a solo set isn't such a bad idea, or maybe getting fluent on the gear that would allow me to do that isn't such a bad idea. So those are the kinds of ideas that have been germinating for me in pandemic, more than how can I use yet one more plugin to make my life better. Although I have to say that I am in love with Console 1 by Softtube, and I love using it in music productions. So that's me.
Excellent. Okay, well, thanks for your thoughts. That's been very illuminating. I guess we're at the point where we're going to say goodbye. I want to say thanks to Andy for switching today, and also to our guests, Rich and Dom. I'll come to them for a proper goodbye, but we'll say thank you to all the people in the IRC, the Discord, the YouTube chat, all of those places. Like I say, we're going to be bringing up some. I was just at the end of that. I was thinking about a video that I spotted from our excavations from Mesa 2002, which you're going to love. I think it was a QWERTY keyboard with a cover that you took off, and it had a little tiny mini keyboard at the bottom for the. I'm going to play that. It was a brilliant pitch. And now we've got some really early demos from some Jerry Kowarski, and also who else? James Bernard. Some real classics from 20 years ago. It's maybe I'll just mention them, and then I can use them in some form of blackmail rather than actually just put them up there. It'll be the inverse of be paying for not content rather than paying for content. Not that we charge for content anyway, but okay, thank you. Rich, lovely to have you. Thank you very much for joining. Have you got more gigs coming up? I guess we're getting into the spring season. It was starting to think about gigs and whatnot.
We're going in 3 weeks. We're going to Colombia to play a festival.
Okay, that sounds good.
And then we'll come home. And then I think I'm not sure what's after that. There is a bunch of down and backs, as I like to call them, to various wonderful locations that precede our intensive summer tour, which begins at the end of May and will extend at least until August. And then there's there's some more tough stuff that's being planned for the fall. So I'll be around you guys for a bunch of the summer, and you can be around. Oh,
brilliant!
Too.
Well, maybe we can actually physically, if the bubble's not too intense, we'll be able to actually physically meet up and imbibe. And of course, Dom, thank you for joining us. Don't forget Dom's show on Sunday night, the 40th birthday, shall we say? Lovely to have you. Thank you, Dom.
Thank you. Can I just very quickly say, as well as if you could, I'd love you to come on Sunday evening, Mr. Wiggly Music. So youtube.com, that's /Mr. Wiggly Music. But also Pro Synth Network have their 100th show on Friday. So that's worth a look with Robbie Puricelli. Just Google Pro Synth Network, and that should be good. And also congratulations to Ken Lewis, who by my YouTube bot standards is the most prolific poster in the chat today, closely followed by Wagyu and Mr. Gum 6V. So there you go. Ken Lewis gets the prize for the most posts in chat.
Excellent. Well, Dom has been applying his skills to some fabulous data mining in the YouTube comments. All not in any way sinister, I might add. It's all good, clean fun, and we may talk to him about this because these are sort of statistics that I think people find fun in in general interactivity things, so I'll have to have a chat with him. But that was Sonic Talk episode 705, recorded today live. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. Thanks to all our chatties and everybody else. We'll say goodbye now, and we'll sign off. See you next time. Take care. Bye-bye now.